Hey guys, I'm Crown, and welcome to my episode 5 review of Kuzu no Honakai, otherwise known as Scum's Wish. In this episode, we get to go deeper into our characters' feelings of what they really feel, and not only that, but we also kinda learn their Scum's Wish, no pun intended. So before I actually talk about all the things with Mugi's backstory and him and Hanabi's scene in this episode, I actually want to talk about Akane and Kanai-sensei first. So we get a deeper look into Akane's character, and basically we kind of understand a little bit more of why she keeps doing the exploitation with people's relationships. And basically Akane doesn't like being bored. She hates the feeling of being bored, and she also hates the feeling of being tied down to something, like the example she gave in this episode, being tied down to the school schedule. She basically wants to be free. So it makes a lot more sense of how she keeps doing the exploitation over the years, because she doesn't like being bored. She likes the excitement and the thrill of it. And we see how Kanai-sensei isn't the right person for her in this exploitation plan she had with Hanabi, because basically Kanai-sensei is a very boring person. And not only that, but Kanai-sensei is extremely inexperienced when it comes to these types of things like love. You see in this episode that Kanai-sensei is basically a beta male. He doesn't catch on to the hints that Akane-sensei was giving to him throughout this episode of basically wanting to fuck him, and he just doesn't get it, pretty much. And honestly, this actually wasn't something I was gonna expect from Kanai-sensei. I actually expected him to be a little bit more confident and kind of just being that normal guy, but apparently not. It's also pretty interesting to notice how Kanai-sensei got flustered when Akane said that she was jealous of his and Hanabi's relationship. So this kind of shows that, yeah, for Kanai-sensei too, that he has much more of a deeper connection with Hanabi than just a regular friendship, and that, yeah, that maybe Hanabi and Kanai-sensei may actually end up together in the end of the series if things actually does go well for them. But yeah, like I said already, I wasn't exactly expecting Kane to be a really inexperienced person in this series, so it adds an interesting dynamic to the show, and I really want to see more of how that's going to affect everything in the show, and kind of how he deals with finding out the things that Akane-sensei and Hanabi have been doing, if he ever does find out. Now time to talk about the stuff with Mugi, because we do find out a good bit about him, and kind of why the reason he kind of fell in love with Akane-sensei, or I guess you could say love with quotations. So this was something I actually forgot to mention in my previous reviews when it was mentioned in the episode, but basically Mugi calls himself a toy for adolescents because his senpai basically used him for sex, and this kind of affects him and kind of his mentality that we see in this episode. Essentially, Mugi doesn't love Akane the same way that Hanabi loves Kanai-sensei, and basically he only sees Akane-sensei as lust. And it comes to find out that Mugi actually knew everything about Akane-sensei that we didn't know, and that he basically knew from the very beginning because his senpai showed it to him. And the thing that's very interesting is that Mugi actually accepts that fact that Akane is like this, and he actually finds it attractive. And this episode also reinforced just how inexperienced Kanai-sensei is, because Mugi actually picked up on all the hints that Akane-sensei was showing to him when she was his tutor before. And basically Mugi fell for her trap of being attracted to Akane-sensei. And like I said before, along with his senpai abusing him for sex, because later in this episode we see that Mugi actually called up his old senpai to basically have sex with her, and we see in this episode that this is actually the first time that Mugi is asking sex for her and not the other way around, and we basically see how his senpai basically calls it even, since she's been using him for sex most of the time when they were younger, and now Mugi is doing the reverse. And we see that his senpai also has guilt for that as well, that she kind of knows that what she did was really wrong, and she kind of sees how that affected Mugi now, as she was actually crying in this episode when they were doing it. So we see that Mugi's love isn't actually love, but it's more of a love lust on Akane-sensei rather than Hanabi actually loving Kanai-sensei. And then now we get to the part with Mugi and Hanabi basically agreeing to have sex with each other, and we kind of see Mugi's personality in this sense as well, when he thinks like, oh, Hanabi looks so pretty when she's scared like this, I'm gonna ruin her. And we see like just how deep like that interaction between him and his senpai in the past couple of years, how that really affected him, and how all he wants is lust. So the last part I want to talk about is actually Hanabi and kind of her feelings throughout this entire situation, and basically Hanabi doesn't want to feel lonely. This delves down deeper to when her father actually left her and her mother when she was way younger, and basically Hanabi didn't get the feeling of loneliness because Kane sensei was there to kind of fill that loneliness for her and give her that safe space, and in turn Hanabi started to fall in love with Kane sensei. So Hanabi never had that feeling of loneliness ever in her life until she can't be with Kane sensei, and then that loneliness starts to dig deep down into her. It's also the same reason that she couldn't turn down Etron's feelings when they had sex, is because she doesn't want to lose Etron, she doesn't want to lose her only girlfriend. This goes back to the same thing with Mugi as well, like she wants to kind of force herself to love Mugi so she doesn't want to feel lonely, so she can have someone in bed next to her, and it's kind of one of the reasons why she's forcing herself to have sex with Mugi, because it also feels good. And that's another thing that people like to do, is to use sex to cope with feeling loneliness. And then we get this confrontation with Mugi and Hanabi, with Hanabi basically trying to force herself to have sex with Mugi, but Mugi asks, like, why do you want to do this so bad if you don't actually love me? And Hanabi gave kind of a weak response saying, well, what if I do love you? And Mugi kind of asked her, like, do you actually want to date for real? Like, do you actually want to be in a real relationship with me? And Hanabi didn't give any answers, because she really can't, because once again, she just feels lonely. She wants to feel good, and sex will make her feel good. So like I said in my previous reviews, and I'm going to say it again in this review, this was another really solid episode. The one thing I'm actually curious about is how the lolly girl is actually going to fit in this situation, because we haven't seen much of her in a good bit, and kind of her feelings in this entire situation, and if she actually is going to be pretty relevant into the story. And like I said, I'm just interested to see what's going to happen next. Like I said this in my first episode, that this might be my anime of the season, and I can definitely say that this is my anime of the season as of right now. Also, I want to ask if you guys have any different interpretations than what I had in this episode, or if you guys want to discuss more about this episode, leave it down in the comment section. I'm actually really interested to see what you guys put down, and kind of how you guys interpret this episode as well as just the rest of the series. And that'll be it for my review, guys. And before I actually close out, I do want to say, for those of you who are watching on YouTube, that I do have a VidMe account right now. So if you use VidMe, go follow me on there, and vice versa to the people who are watching on VidMe, that I am on YouTube. And if you want to see more of my content, subscribe on there as well. And all my uploads are going to be on YouTube, and most of my uploads are going to be on VidMe. So yeah, like I said earlier, just let me know what you guys think about this episode and just the series in general. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next review.